everyone. How many of you have classes to get to in 15 minutes? Why?
We need to. Because I'm paying for it.
Why do you need to? You're paying for it. Are you paying to sit in one spot? Is that what you're paying for? Why do you ever thought about why you have to be in a classroom for 150 minutes exactly every week for each course? Ever thought about that? Why? Not 155 minutes, not 145 minutes? 150 minutes every week. And it starts at 12:30 and goes to 1:45. So you have to be there for that set point in time. Why? Well, if you ever wondered why, well, maybe you haven't, but now I'm going to tell you got to wonder why, because I want to think about an alternative. I'm going to tell you why we got here, why we are stuck going to classes in these weird 75-minute increments, where it came from, why I think it's problematic, and maybe there's a way that we can do this differently so we can rebuild education for the 21st century. The reason why is called the credit hour. Credit hour, where did it come from? Well, 100 years ago, Andrew Carnegie decided he wanted to do something for underpaid professors, which I'm all on board with, right? But back then, professors were even more underpaid. They had no retirement benefits. And Andrew Carnegie, in true philanthropist robber baron fashion, said, I want to do something for these professors because I want them to stay doing it. I don't want them to work forever. I'm going to give them a pension plan. I'm going to donate money to give them a pension plan. But I only want to give it to people who do this stuff full time. So he and his advisors said, we got to figure out a way to measure what it means to be full time as a professor. And so they said, all right, 12 hours a week in a classroom, that's full time. And thus was born the credit hour, a measurement of teachers' work time. Here's the problem. A couple decades, didn't take long, all of a sudden, the credit hour is a measurement of how much time teachers stay in a classroom for the purposes of calculating their retirement, becomes a measurement of learning, which it is not. It's actually a measure of how many times your butts are in seats in a classroom. And I will tell you that that is not a measurement of learning. It's even in the name itself, credit hour. You get credit for an hour in a classroom. By the way, how much time do you think that is? Any guesses? No, how many credit hours, how many hours do you need to spend in a classroom at this college in order to get that piece of paper? A lot. 120 credit hours, 1,500 hours in a classroom, or if you really want to get serious and kind of nutty about it, 90,000 minutes. Think about that the next time you're looking at your phone, waiting for that minute to click over. So you're 1 minute closer to getting out of that class. 90,000 of those. Whew. Okay, here's the problem. Work time for a professor and learning are two different things. They're not the same thing. Now, okay, you may say, but I got to take tests. I got to write papers. And yeah, you do, right? And that's a good thing, because if it turns a measurement of learning, that's actually a lot closer than sitting your butt in a seat, right? And that takes time outside of class. So those 1,500 hours over 4 years, they expect you to spend a lot more time than just those 1,500 hours working on what you're studying and so on and so forth. It's the expectation what you do out of class. Here's a dirty little secret though. You know, you just got to maintain a C average, right? Think about that for a moment. It means you get a B in one class, a D in another class, you're still good, right? All got to average out. Here's another thing. Grades on papers and tests, especially papers, are not just based on your learning, which you display in those things. They're based on whether you turn them in on time. Aren't there late penalties for papers? Right? Sometimes late penalties are so severe that your grade is more affected by the late penalty, potentially, than it is by what you show you can do. What else are course grades based on? Attendance policies. That gets back to the credit hour, the expectation. You got to spend time in a classroom, and that's what really matters, not what you've learned. So here's my argument. Your college credential is predicated not on having demonstrated what you actually learned, what you can do, and what you know, but on having your butt in a classroom for a prescribed length of time. And that's a problem. It's kind of like time served. Right? Let me suggest a couple of more specific reasons why it's a problem. You can already see it. So this model was designed at the start of the 1900s, start of the dawn of the industrial age, right about the time Henry Ford was figuring out the assembly line. And it is a model that is designed for the industrial age. It's designed for factories which run on clock time. 8 a.m., clock in, 5 a.m., clock out. It's a model that's designed like an assembly line, which works on identical interchangeable parts. In other words, it assumes that all of you are identical interchangeable parts. You think that's right? Yeah? You look a little bigger than the person standing next to you, so I'm guessing you're not identical and interchangeable. Seriously, think about it. It treats students as identical interchangeable parts because it assumes that every student learns at exactly the same pace. Do you think that's true? No. I can tell you from experience and from the research that that is manifestly not the case. But too bad. Because under this system, you got to spend 15 weeks in a classroom, 37 and a half hours, 2,250 minutes, since we're counting by minutes. Now, look, we professors, we do our best to make that time interesting and meaningful and productive from a learning standpoint. We work really hard, and Eric talked about this at the last Blue Stool. We worked really hard to make that time important and valuable to you, right? But if everybody learns at different rates, then clearly 15 weeks is going to be too much for some and not enough for others, right? What if you show that you can do what the course wants you to do in 10 weeks? Move on to something else. What if it takes you longer? There are plenty of students who get to the end of those 15 weeks who are like, well, I'm not really sure. I got some of this stuff, but not others. Wouldn't it be better if you took the extra time to really know that stuff instead of taking your C+ and moving on to the next class? Employers know this, by the way. They do surveys of employers all the time, and consistently they come back. A large percentage of employers, the most recent survey I looked at, about a third, said that college degrees are not enough to prepare their students for the entry-level jobs that they are advertising. And this is why a lot of employers now, as part of the hiring process, are including tests. It's like, we don't trust that your degree means that you can do X, Y, and Z, even though college A says it can. So we're going to give you a test as well. We're going to give you a writing test, we're going to give you a coding test, whatever it is, right? That shows that the system is not working the way it's supposed to be. Here's another question. What about online courses? There's no classroom. You don't literally spend an hour in an online classroom at the same time every week, for the most part. What about those? Does that mean no learning takes place in an online classroom? Well, according to the Logic Credit Hour, it would. That's what it suggests, right? So online courses had to come up with a workaround. They come up with these things called credit hour calculators. And they say, all right, a certain amount of work that you do for that class is going to be the equivalent of you having spent a certain amount of time in a classroom. You can already see it's sort of a rough. It's just, by the way, I looked at one of these the other days. A 10-page, well-researched paper, double-spaced, 2,500 words, that goes through several drafts. They say it takes a student about 40 hours. And whatever fraction of a credit hour that is, that's what counts. That's how they figured it out with online courses. So, well, that's moving in the right direction at least, but it's still measuring student work time instead of instructor work time. But it's not measuring learning itself, and that's what we need to do. We want to rebuild education for the 21st century. We want to have an education system that responds to the fact that today, when students need to learn something, Sometimes they go to YouTube. How many of you use a how-to YouTube video to learn something? On-demand learning. You figure out what you need to do, you go get it. And it takes as long as it takes, right? Here's my manifesto. Let's give you credit for what you've actually learned how to do. Let's not lock people into 15-week blocks. Focus on what you're supposed to learn it, demonstrate it, and move on. No matter how long it takes. That 20th century model of education as an assembly line, as a factory, well, if you're paying attention to the news, the factories are going away. We're living in a post-industrial society. Let's rebuild education for the post-industrial age. Let's do it. Let's kill the credit hour. Yeah. Thank you.